Good evening. This is your host, Lonnie Clark, with the Age of Fission radio show. I want to thank you for joining us here on KEPW 97.3 FM LP here in Eugene, Springfield. Also, we want to invite you to listen to KEPW on the web at www.kepw. And one more thing we're going to ask of our KEPW listeners, please go to our station website, hit the support button, and you can either send us a check, we can make it an auto debit, or you can have it auto debited right there on the website. But we would love any amount of support that you can. We are a completely 501c3 organization, meaning nonprofit, which I found out this week means something's going to happen to my radio show. I can't, no calls to action. I got reminded of that because I end up asking, I think I incorrectly. What I need to do is get people on that can give you phone numbers and things like that. So, slap on the wrist, noted. So I won't do that again. But, the reason I have the music in the background is because the information I give you on this radio show is pretty grave. I'm just talking about Hanford and the Columbia Generating Station. But let's talk about Diablo Canyon down in the earthquake zone where they are expecting earthquakes, or the San Onofre nuclear power plant that has 100 tanks or 50 tanks right next to the ocean. Diablo Canyon's tanks, Harvey Wasserman on Levy Halevi show said that you can't really examine them, just like the ones at San Onofre. Can't examine them. The way we hold our weight. What I'm not going to call it waste anymore, you guys. I am going to call this byproduct. It's radioactive byproduct because it's not waste. It's like you can just throw it away. You can't just throw it away. And regular waste remediates. So I want to thank everybody for joining me. I want to remind you that you're listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. And I forgot to tell you when I first introduced ourselves, I was so excited about being on KEPW. For those of you who find me on the internet, you can find me at Spreaker.com. My channel name is Lonnie Clark, and I have the Age of Fission, Nuclear Hot Seat, and I have not updated the Operation Save the Earth. And maybe I'm thinking, what if I can get Dave to do that? Maybe he'll do it. But otherwise, I will get to it, but I'm catching up Nuclear Hot Seat. And that's where you can get the other shows that I... you can listen to Nuclear Hot Seat here on KEPW, but for those of you on the internet, Nuclear Hot Seat is also a self-funded kind of it's not a formal nonprofit, but she's just a retired person who was a victim at 3 Mile Island, Levy Halevi. She went there to visit friends, and because she was not a citizen of the town, she got no medical care. She wasn't on the books. She wasn't on the records. It changed her life completely. And then when Fukushima happened, she decided to start doing this radio show. Completely, it's not for profit, but it's not a formal not for profit, right? It's just a radio show. A podcast, I guess that's what you call us. Like my Age of Fission radio show, I don't profit off of this. I host it on Spreaker, and I do believe they put commercials on there, but I don't get any of it at all. And honestly, that's not my motivation. My motivation is to inform the public of what is going on, because after Fukushima, I honestly believed that we were safe until I had a nightmare in 2012. And then I realized Hanford, I saw the whole sky orange. It felt like there was a huge fire, and I knew it was the Hanford thing on fire. And I discovered that Hanford was probably fine, but Fukushima was way out of control, right? So then I became a YouTuber, and then I ended up doing this podcast, the Age of Fission radio show on ucy.tv. You can listen to all my old podcasts on that station, and I don't believe they made money either. That's why they went out of business, because it was all just give and no give back. But I mean, nobody's running to say, hey, you know what, we're this, it's not waste, it's a byproduct of the nuclear industry, because it becomes something else, and that's why we have these power facilities. It's not for the energy. It's for their byproduct, which helps build the whole nuclear industry builds upon itself. It's like a circular motion. They want to build nuclear weapons. They're looking for nuclear technology out in space in case something goes wrong. They're like, whatever, who cares? It's space. Like, there's no respect for life anywhere in the universe from this industry. They're completely psychotic, to be honest, completely disconnected from what we call the human heart, So since I found out, I've actually gotten more passionate. It's the kind of thing I can't let go of. So remember the last 2 weeks that we had our live show 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, maybe, I told you about the President Bush, or I call him Trader Trump because, President Trump. I don't like to call him president because he's not really a president. He really is a traitor. In the most biggest sense of the word, because people don't betray their country because they hate it. They betray it for money, and he has. And they're undermining our government right now in a multitude of ways. And honestly, the American public are allowing it to happen, like this nuclear waste. I want to report to you, I went to go see Ron Wyden's office 2 days ago as a private citizen. I didn't go as the host of the Age of Fission, because that creates, once we start going there as press, we can't represent ourselves at our representative's office as individuals again. So once you're press, you're always press. It's kind of a weird thing. So I have never really said I want to come as press. But I go as a constituent, and I speak with June. I forget June's last name, forgive me. She's been with Ron Wyden's office for 20 years. And this is the reality. Like I was telling them, look, first it was they reclassified 100 million gallons of radioactive waste. Just decided that we've been classifying it wrong all these years. And hey, by the way, if we reclassified it as low level, we could save $54 billion. And we'll just bury it. We have friends where they say they could take care of it, so we're going to trust that they could take care of it. And all of that waste is going to get on trucks that think it is loaded up with low-level waste, and it is really high-level waste, and they think they can get away with it. This is incompetence, illiteracy, a witch. It's dangerous, it's pathological, it's a lack of science, a lack of respect for the sciences and the knowledge that we know about these byproducts. It's beyond comprehension. I wouldn't doubt if there's like some nefarious reason, like they want to be able to lose it along the way or something and then sell it on the black market to our enemies. This is how deep I believe that these rats are. I mean, I read to you 2 weeks ago from that article that said Rick Perry's office, his governor campaign, was given, $1.3 million by, what was it called? Assured Security or something like that. What's the name of that organization? Access Security. Forgive me, you guys. I'm not very good with the name rememberings. Anyways. And then the following week we get a story from Crosscut about the Trump administration limiting the access of the Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board to the sites of Hanford and all of the, quote, legacy sites. That's really, they don't want them to be on any of their sites. Like, not the waste isolation processing plant. They're not allowed to go anywhere without permission, and their employees are not allowed to talk to them. It is a dangerous, dangerous thing. Everybody in the industry was like, you're what? These DOE sites, which number in the dozens, the largest being Hanford, Idaho National Lab, and Savannah River, South Carolina, made plutonium, processed uranium, and created other materials for the atomic bomb. Now, they say this vast amounts of radioactive waste. I call it byproducts. I think we need to change the language on this. We have allowed the nuclear industry to take over the language of their filthy business. And it is about time for us to call it what it is. It's a byproduct. And they find that byproduct valuable, which is why they continue to shove it down our throats. So, we need honesty in science. Okay, so then that happens. You know what happens this week? We have this 107-page report that came out from, who is it? The Department of Ecology. Let me go back to the front page. It's titled Engineering Evaluation Cost Analysis for the Purex Complex. That's the Hanford site at the Hanford site. Prepared for the U.S. Department of Energy Assistant Secretary for Environmental Management. And who prepared it? U.S. Department of Energy, Richards Operations Office. Approved for public release. Further disseminations unlimited. And who approved it? Ann Meyer. I mean, basically what it says is that there is big waste up there. Removal action is required to mitigate potential threats to human health and the environment posed by contamination associated with these buildings and structures. It gives a little bit of history before that sentence. It says the Purex complex was used for chemical separation of plutonium from irradiated fuel rods from 1956 to 1972 and from 1983 to 88, which resulted in contamination of buildings, equipment, and structure within the complex. The scope of this EECA includes Building 202A, which is made up of the Canyon Building and annex and attached annexes, 202A Canyon, 202A East Annex, 202A West Annex. This is why I decided you hear. Now, aren't you glad I have the music in the background? I think this is way easier to take with the music in the background, so I think I'm going to keep adding it. Because this stuff is like, ugh. Now watch where you see this. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I was looking at, trying to read what they were saying. It said, many of the activities recommended in this EECA can be accomplished with available funds identified through efficiencies or new funding. Efficiencies mean you cut off something else. You take money from here and you put it into there. Right? So this is how much it would cost. They have 4 alternatives. One would do no action, so it doesn't cost anything. Number 2 would be surveillance and maintenance of Purex complex structures. Hazard abatement of 202A building. That would cost $177.9 million. Why don't they just say $178 million? Because they're lying about that number too. It's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 times that. Number 3, alternative 2, sections plus, so it has the same thing, but number 3, they will do demo prep of 202A and West annexes. So just adding on demo prep, not demolition, but just getting it ready to demo. It would cost, plus all the first one, it would cost a total of $190.6. So that would be like 178, and this is like 191. So increases it by a little weensy, not lots. Number 4, alternative 3 actions plus demo prep of 202A above deck arena. So they didn't say, 202 Canyon above deck arena, demo prep, demolition of 202A East and West annexes. So you notice they didn't give us a demo, alternative 5 that would give us the demo of the 202 Canyon above deck area. Why didn't they do that? Because they have no intention of doing any of it. All they want is the money. They're going to do as little as possible. There is no oversight to these people. They're writing a really beautiful report. Alternative 4 is both technically and administratively feasible and will also support future remedial decisions and characterization activities at the Purex complex. So then they have these big, long, huge, this is 170 pages. It goes into depth. I would strongly recommend people to just peruse this, especially the science types who can really comprehend the stuff they're saying. But even me, I can read legalese, and this just lets them off the hook. Although the full range of circular response actions may be applicable to decommissioning activities, NTCRAs should be used for decommissioning consistent with this policy. The alternative approaches available for decommissioning projects typically are clear and very limited. This will often eliminate the need for more thorough analysis of alternatives required for remedial action. So they're like, oh, we don't need to do any more stuff. NTCRA requirements provide greater flexibility to develop decommissioning plans that are, quote, appropriate for the circumstances presented. Statutory time and dollar limits on removal actions do not apply to removal actions conducted by DOE, which increases the scope of projects that may be addressed by DOE removal action. More importantly, NTCRAs usually will provide benefits to worker safety, public health, and the environment more rapidly and cost effectively than remedial actions. For these reasons, DOE may exercise removal action authority to conduct decommissioning whenever such action is authorized by CERCLA, the NCTCP, and Executive Order 12580. This is all just legalese. But you know what they're really saying when I read through it today? They're saying that this place is falling apart. Site characterization. The scope and conditions of the current conditions that justify removal action. This is just unbelievable. The building, the 202A building, is located within the Purex complex in the 200 East area. The 200 East area is located on a plateau at an elevation ranging from 620 to 800 feet above mean sea level near the middle of the Hanford site. Figure 2.1, they have figures of everything here. The Purex complex is approximately 6.8 miles from the Columbia River and 5.3 miles from State Highway 240. Public access at the Hanford site is currently restricted and controlled at the Y barricade on Route 4 and the Yakima and Rattlesnake barricades on Highway 240. Unauthorized access to the Purex complex is prohibited. The complex buildings and structures are locked, and a 6-foot cyclone fence encloses the immediate areas. Wow. This is the background. It tells us what it did. It used to process ironclad zirconium alloy. Before irradiation in the reactors, the fuel elements were clad with zirconium alloy. At the Purex, this cladding was removed by dissolution in an ammonium fluoride and ammonium nitrate solution. Once declad, the fuel elements were treated as potassium hydroxide and then dissolved in nitric acid. The resulting feed solution entered the solvent extraction columns where the plutonium, uranium, and neptunium could be extracted. Wow. Purex was constructed between 1952 and 56 and was in full operation between 56 and 72. Well, I will not bore you with the rest of this stuff, but this, you guys need to take a look at this. Let me see, where can you find it? I got it, I downloaded it from the website. Let me go back so I can find the front page. Because this is unbelievable. It is called, you can just Google this and it'll pop up on the Department of Energy website. And on my YouTube channel and on my Spreaker channel, I will have the link to this, and I think I linked it before. I gave this to Ron Wyden's office when I was there. They were kind of dumbfounded. They could not believe it. I mean, this was picked up. I picked this up in a story from Google because I have a notification from Google that I want to be notified about nuclear stuff. So I get the Tri-Cities articles all the time. And they're the Tri-Cities. The Tri-City Herald is the best reporter on the Hanford issues anywhere in the country. I mean, they help Hanford Challenge and the other Northwest activist groups with real information of what's going wrong at Hanford. And honestly, without them, they're true valiant reporters up there, because it is not easy to report against the nuclear industry and be in mainstream media. So my hat is off to Ann Carey and the rest of the crew up there, because that is where I saw this story, and I just followed the link to be honest. I just kept following the link of where it was. And let me see if I can actually find it, because I did send it to Ron Wyden's office, because it's just incomprehensible that we have a non-responsive, not just non-responsive, but an illiterate nuclear scientific community who's clicking their heels. Like, imagine the scientists who are working at Hanford, who have to deal with these decisions, like who are being told, oh, well, we have decided in an executive order that this highly radioactive waste is now going to be considered low-level radioactive waste, and you guys are going to be responsible for putting it on trucks so it can be moved across the country. That's what they're doing. And I believe it's not just Hanford. I believe it's also at South Carolina. I read online another article, and forgive me for not being prepared on this one, but I heard that it was the first places that are going to be moved post this executive order. It's going to be moved from South Carolina to Texas. They're moving that out right away at the Savannah site. So all of the whole East Coast is quite contaminated. Imagine the flooding that's going on with the chemical and nuclear and just the horrible contamination that have been allowed. Trump overturned in his first year and a half 269 regulations. So that's why it's way easier to make a profit when you do not have to spend money protecting the environment. It's pretty easy to make a better profit. So that is in fact where we were. So I have to admit, it's a challenge for me to frame things in just my opinion. And because I am somewhat of on a personal scope, this is why I have my YouTube channel, because I do vent a little bit there, because I want us to have an honest, friendly dialogue. This is why when I interview Heidi Lambert and other activists, I really like people. My number one rule is you can't call each other names. And I know people say, well, you're calling Traitor Trump, a name. No, I'm not. It's not calling him a name. He is a traitor, and he does not deserve the respect of president. And yes, there have been other horrible presidents. In fact, all of them have been co-opted by the industrial military complex. And ironically, I don't know if I could talk about this, but I heard Bernie Sanders last night talking about we have to stand up to the 1%, and we have to stand up to all the powers that be, the banks, the usuals. Plus, we have to stand up to the industrial military complex. We need to say normal war. I was thinking we should maybe get a channel that war is over, or war is outdated, because war is outdated. I mean, the technology that they need to have, this nuclear technology, if they did the science with more respect, they could probably find the answers they want to use this technology. And they could stop making it immediately and shut down every nuclear power facility on the planet. I mean, every single private nuclear facility ought to be shut down, especially in the United States. Especially since we have Hanford, we have so many, we have Diablo Canyon, we have some big, I know that we're on an earthquake watch down on the coast of California, and I do have some concerns. I hope to goodness that Diablo Canyon is safe, and that, San Onofre is safe. We have waste in these tanks that are dangerously old and leak after 20 years, according to the vendors. So you can go to San Onofre Safety. Let me see if I can find it. San Onofre Safety, and look at the inventory of where all the nuclear waste is. And I'm going to call it byproduct. I really am beginning to, that sticks in my craw to call it waste, because it is not waste. It is unbelievable. Right now, actually, the byproduct from every nuclear power facility is sitting right next to each plant, because they're storing it at sites indefinitely. Very few of them are shipping them to other sites. So if you have a nuclear facility next to you, they are storing it in containers around you. So this is stuff that people need to completely understand. This is not like accidental. They know what they're doing. They know how much they're really putting us at risk. And they're so afraid to tell us the truth. I think that's the issue, is this is why I like the work that Donna Gilmore does. Because she actually tells us exactly what the government does, but in words that we can understand, right? So if you go to her website, and I'm just going to Google on her website for storage tanks. Storage. Let's see what pops up. The nuclear fuel. This is the latest article on her thing, and this was written, when was this written? Nuremberg high burnup fuel storage and transport draft is seriously flawed. This is comments to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission from Donna Gilmore. And this was dated September 24th, 2018. And it has not been responded to. She goes into lengths about why their data is incorrect. She's a numbers person. And I think that what has happened, this is why these regulations that are saying, we're not going to have people looking over our shoulders anymore going on here. I think it's all interconnected, you guys. Honestly, I'm just going to go off on a small tangent here tonight because I've kind of hit it up to here just with reporting every week. There's this is just the Northwest, and this is just Hanford and the Columbia Generating Station, but every facility. Diablo Canyon is one of the ones I worry about. Diablo Canyon, as it turns out, it just pours its nuclear waste right into the river. Has ever since it's been. It is a huge dead zone at the mouth of the river outside of where Diablo Canyon is. So we have been ignoring this for long enough. It's up to us citizens to decide to take it back. We cannot let these people who are profiting off of us, yes, they're killing themselves also, but they don't care because they figure, well, I'm going to live 50, 70 years anyways. They can live in ultimate wealth while they're destroying the planet. They don't care. They're psychopathic. Does not mean their paradigm has to be ours. So I refuse to participate with that. I'm not going to call it waste anymore. I'm going to call it byproduct. We've got to take the language back. There's plutonium byproduct. Cesium-137 is floating around in everybody's body right now. They don't even test for plutonium. You do know that, right? Because they know they're going to find it in all of us. You know why I was told? This was from a scientist who did these types of studies. They don't test because plutonium's half-life is so long, 24,500 years, that they can't tell if the plutonium is from recent exposure or from when it first started doing the bomb testing 50 years ago. I find this to be... What's more astounding is that people just take it, silently take it, as if that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to do that, folks. That's why I'm on this radio show, because honestly, I want you to go to the, let me go find it. You just go to the Department of Ecology at Washington. Go to the Hanford Challenge. Now, Hanford Challenge is a 501(c), so I can actually talk about them because I'm not promoting a for-profit business. This is just another organization that does fabulous work. Tom Carpenter up there. There are a few of them other words. Louisa Hamachek knows the other ones, and she's quite insistent I get to know them. So I am beginning to look at them, but I don't know them quite as much. So there's press releases on the Hanford side. So right now there's the whistleblower suit. The Hanford site lawsuit settles in federal court. Millwright Walter Ford filed a lawsuit in federal court against Bechtel, the contractor building, and the $17 billion plant, and AECOM its primary subcontractor. Wow. The Department of Labor said in a ruling made in 2015 that Ford's role as a Hanford nuclear as a whistleblower I'm going to read this again. The Department of Labor said in a ruling made in 2015 that Ford's role as a whistleblower in his 35 years at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation contributed to a decision to lay him off in November 2011. The Department of Labor found in 2015 that Ford was scrutinized and treated more harshly than other employees. It ordered that Ford be paid back wages, attorney fees, and $25,000. Bechtel objected, but before the issue was resolved, the administrative law judge who ruled left his job. Rather than go through another Department of Labor hearing, Ford filed lawsuit in federal court in 2018, said his attorney Nicholas Peterson of Hanford challenged when the case was filed. The parties declined to talk about the settlement, other than to say that all the parties have reached a mutually satisfactory resolution of the case. So this is what they do. They fight people and then they force you to secrecy. Because they know in secret their lies, their deceptions are not going to be publicized. So they use the victims as tools to keep lying. Like we found out they've done in Fukushima. Like we find that they do it it is the culture of the nuclear industry to lie and mislead, period. Exaggerate or under-exaggerate. So, oh, well, no, we found no diseases there. That's because they never tested. Or they specifically deny the tests, scientists to do testing. And yet we as citizens, ho-hum, we just read about it on the internet. We might call our elected officials. You know what, actually it was Pete DeFazio's office. And it was June, because I called Pete DeFazio's office the next morning. I've been calling their offices every day. I'm just going to be pretty political on this one. Just my personal opinion. Nobody else's doesn't reflect on the show, but I call them every day, and I am calling Nancy Pelosi and my elected officials and telling them that I believe we need impeachment hearings if we want to save our democracy. I feel very strongly about that. And I believe once the information comes out, it might sway public. Even if not, we could censor the traitor and vote him out. That's my opinion only. So I'm not telling anybody anything else, but that's how I feel. And I call Nancy Pelosi's office, Ron Wyden. I'm calling them every day because I feel very, I really believe that, like, this assault on us using idiocy in the upending 80 years of nuclear, quote, safety, what little safety we have. The nuclear industry has a history of lying anyways. And the little bit of safety that we have, these guys have upended at some of the most contaminated nuclear sites we have in our history. And it is incomprehensible, although it's not, because I actually believe it is part of the entire program. Like this Epstein thing. Like this whole, finally the sexual predator got... No, he didn't. The sexual predator is not going to get anything. Yeah, they're going to make a show out of him. He's going to get convicted, but he's going to get soft-pedaled again. He will get off scot-free practically again because he knows too many people. Why do you think this guy Agar, whatever his name is, Acosta, I think his name was, he was like, well, it was a different time then. Meaning the Clintons were still around and we didn't want to have to report on Donald Trump and Bill Clinton getting on the plane all the time. And, oh, let's don't forget, what's that, Prince Andrew, the Queen's, like, little son or, ridiculousness guy. I think that's her son. There was pictures of all three of those people getting on the airplane with Epstein. So I saw pictures of Clinton and Trump together with Epstein and two very young girls headed towards an airplane. They were coming from opposite ends. The three men and the two girls were coming, and they were both headed towards the steps up the airplane. It was ridiculous. That got scrubbed from the internet the minute Donald Trump wanted to run for president. But I saw it with my own eyes in about 2007. It's ridiculous. Listen, I stopped listening to Donald Trump when he was on the Howard Stern show and talked about girls as if they were like property. It was disgusting. He was not worth following. He's still not, but he is the President of the United States with the full power of it. And right now, he is using torture against small children as a tool, which is, in my view, again, why I call Nancy Pelosi every day an impeachable offense. And I do not buy this whole party line, corporate party line. Well, we don't want to impeach him because they're going to use it as a tool against us. So let these unethical Republicans use it as a tool against Americans. Go ahead. You side with the torturer of children. You side with the sexual predators, with the guys who side with our enemies and the dictators. Go ahead, try that one on for size. See how the American people really buy it. That is, if we have a free and fair election. And that, also goes back down to this. It's like the NRC, public comment, please come and give us all your thoughts. Donna Gilmore in one of my radio interviews with her said the best way is not to just keep asking for a delay, because delay causes them, if enough people ask for a delay at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of all of these actions, just say, slow it down. We need to see more information. They will keep delaying, and then it becomes too expensive and they won't do it. That's how a lot of the stupid decisions have been sort of reversed, because they don't like to reverse themselves, she said, because they're public entities. So it doesn't look very good for them. And so this is where Donna Gilmore from San Onofre Safety, that's why she's made a name for herself, because she's smart. She knows how to work the system. She worked within the system. She was, I think, a programmer, a high-end programmer for the state of California, and worked these really complex systems. That's why she can read all the gobbledygook government stuff and talk to them in their language. But she's right. Like, just delay. So anytime you make a comment, at the end of your comment, add, I'd like the NRC to delay this decision and do a little bit more study. Please delay. Because if enough people ask them to delay, they will. Because otherwise you just say, yeah, no. Oh, yes, we're going to do it anyways. Rubber stamp, license, it doesn't matter. I'm still very, very ready to interview Diane Turco, who worked for 32 years to close down the the Pilgrim nuclear power plant in Massachusetts. So it's just been a logistics time. We had an interview and I had to cancel because I had to work, and she's just been busy out of town. And I believe she's probably in the New Mexico thing that's going on, like what the heritage with the nuclear bomb victims of all of the First Nations. They come together in the first few weeks of July and bring together all the information they found out and recall what happened, and I guess figure out how they're going to keep moving forward to get people to understand this and to get government action, and how we're going to actually really go over it again and again. So wow. So let's see how much time we have left, because I do have enough time. So you're listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show, and we are playing live tonight. It is July 11th, 2019. I'm actually not live. I'm pre-recording this, but it's going to play tonight at 11 o'clock on KEPW 97.3 FM LP here in Springfield, Eugene. And goes out quite a bit of ways, almost to Corvallis. We really love our radio station. We're also on the internet, www.kepw.org, and hit listen now. You can listen to all of our fabulous, really homegrown programs. We do play some canned NPR stuff like Democracy Now! But you know what? Most of it is really very localized, really great programs, all diversified. So please do peruse our calendar and listen in and tune in as often as you can. So I'm going to talk to you about this whole Epstein thing, because I just fancied on an email that I had opened up. And let me see if I can find it again. Yeah, here it is. It was issued to the United States District Court, Southern District of New York, Jane Doe, under proceedings of a pseudonym, plaintiff, Donald Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein, defendants. What date is this? This is unbelievable, and this does not make news. This was filed 6/20/2016. This is still going on, and it's just now being talked about. This is the thing. when I saw this just blew me away, because they're talking about these things as if we didn't know. We know who these people are. And this whole thing is just a distraction. Our people, right now, there's a hurricane just about to hit New Orleans again. Waterlogged, water-soaked, highly contaminated New Orleans. I mean, it's incomprehensible that we're not at all prepared for this. And we heard tonight, oh yeah, Trader Trump says he's not going to raid New Orleans for all the undocumented people like they planned. They're going to keep them off the list, but don't, if you're in St. Louis, you better worry, or if you're in Michigan, you better worry, or God knows where you're at. He's going to hit the states, like they'll go to California. They go to the easy pickings. Georgia, they'll probably go to Georgia and Kentucky, because those people have the least amount. South Carolina, North Carolina, those easy pickings, because they don't have a government that defends people's rights. So, yes, I'm glad I put this music on in the background, because this week's news on all of this is just incomprehensible. Where we're at. It's as if we're expected to just ignore the nuclear contamination. And when we hear about nuclear, you know what we hear is we hear about stopping the nuclear weapons. I don't actually think we need to stop nuclear weapons, because they're already poisoning us. We have so much plutonium. We already have, like, if the nuclear bomb drops, yeah, I guess we lose a lot of people immediately, but guess what? We're still losing a lot of people. A lot of people. Cancer is the #1 killer of children in this country. We see television commercials with little kids begging us to give them money because our government will not pay for their health care. It's beyond comprehension. Okay, listen to this story that just came out one day ago, and this is on the HuffPost. So this is kind of mainstream. I'm actually shocked. I never see anything on the HuffPost about this. This must be egregious. The U.S. Department of Energy shipped potentially dangerous material incorrectly labeled as low-level radioactive waste into Nevada for several years, the state governors announced. Wow. The statement from Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak on Wednesday said the department sent a total of 32 shipments to the Nevada National Security Site between 2013 and 2018 that were supposed to be low-level radioactive waste from a facility in Tennessee. The DOE told the Las Vegas Review-Journal later on Wednesday that there was actually 9 shipments that had 32 containers. Okay. So it wasn't 32 shipments. There were 9 shipments that had 32 containers. Okay, so that's a little bit of a correction. But this is what they're doing here, just like they're reclassifying this 100 million gallons of radioactive waste. So they were shut down after 2018, but they did do it for 5 years. This is what they rely on. But DOE Deputy Secretary Daniel Brulette said Sisolak on June 3rd that some of those shipments may have included reactive material, which can release large amounts of thermodynamic energy. Sisolak's office said DOE officials have not yet confirmed that the shipments definitely contained radioactive material, which he said would trigger safety concerns. Really? We're glad it would trigger some safety concerns. These people are incomprehensibly cruel. This is just, I mean, oh man, I actually, okay, let's see what this says. This is unbelievable. This is from Governor Sisolak. He tweeted it out. Can you believe it? That's the state of our affairs these days, when the guy has to tweet out what he's thinking. Oh my God. Is that like an official way of conducting business now? On July 5th, Sisolak and Senators Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen sent a letter to Energy Secretary Rick Perry citing the risk posed to Nevada residents and environment demanding that the DOE immediately correct the waste disposal mistake and create new procedures to ensure it doesn't happen again. These egregious acts, whether acts of negligence or indicative of something else, are unconscionable and have potentially put the health and safety of Nevadans and our environment at unacceptable risk, the letter said. Blah, blah, blah. The security site has been a place to permanently dispose of what the DOE categorizes as low-level radioactive waste, which can include materials like rags, construction debris, and other equipment exposed to radioactive material. The site also takes in some forms of mixed low-level waste, which can contain some hazardous waste such as garbage and sludge. The governor's office said mixed low-level waste is more strictly regulated and requires treatment prior to disposal and a more protective disposal method than low-level waste. The shipments in question were not properly labeled to indicate which materials were low-level waste and which were dangerous. That's exactly what they're planning on doing in making it legal. So this is part of their new program. They're stopping it in Nevada, but they're going to start doing it at the Department of Energy at Hanford. And then they refused to allow the oversight board on site. Right out, they knew that this report from Hanford, from the Department of Ecology, was coming out saying Hanford's falling apart and we desperately need help, we need funding, because it's falling apart if you do nothing. And we have the money, we can reallocate it, and you got to give us a little bit more money. So what they're talking about is like abandoning some sites and allocating money towards something else, the more important urgent sites. Like those buildings from Purex, they are in bad shape. You should read this report. I thought about reading the report, but honestly, it's boring. Most of it is just, you heard me read a little bit of it. I just think that I'd much rather you go and find the report and read it for yourself, because it is kind of a shock it's beyond comprehension. And I was looking on Donna Gilmore's site, and I honestly cannot find it. She actually has a spreadsheet that tells you about all of the nuclear canisters that are, in the United States at these at non-military sites, right? So she has these canisters here. I think I found the inventory. It's a 2 dry casket inventory. She created this, and it says U.S. commercial spent fuel canisters, cast and loaded as of June 2013. So she created this in 13, but I think she's updated it a little bit, because the last load mentioned on here is 14. So I know it's been in there since 2014. So this is the thing. We have here most of us in Oregon think that we do not have the Trojan power facility, but Trojan still has. They have 2 sets of welded containers. They're 15 years old in 2018, so they're 16 years old now. In one facility of Trojan, there are 29 containers, total casts. They call them casts, and those are welded. And they've been there for 16 years. Their first load was in 2003, and it's the Holtec container. And the assembly cask, in each cask, there's 24 assemblies, right? So there's 29 casks times 24, that's how much is there. And it's in these Holtec canisters. And Holtec canisters are the ones that are 5/8 inches thick. So they know that they're going to crack after 20 years. So it's been in there 16, 17 years. But the reason they can't see them is they put them in these canisters, and they're so radioactive, so they build another concrete, it's 6 inches thick around it, it's like a little dome with vents, so it can vent 24 hours a day radioactive contamination. But the NRC's deemed that that's okay because the solution to pollution is dilution. That's their motto, right? So our canisters leak 24 hours a day, but they start cracking, and you can't tell that they're cracking because they can't get in there because it's a closed off container. So all they do is they shimmy up these little cameras that can go in and see maybe, but they can't really tell where. They can't inspect the whole site. They can just run them in on the side of the building where it's not so toxic. So in Oregon, at Trojan facility at the mouth of the Columbia River, that's shut down. Now, they did close it down, right? It didn't ever really fully operate. And then there's also, or I have to say, I don't know if it did fully operate. I'm not from Oregon, but I do know that they shut it down. They also have 5 welded tanks that are also at the same time, and those are also Holtec, and there are 24 assemblies in them. And it has a different model. These are 5 with a different model. The first 24, the first 29 were model MPC24E, and this one was MPC24EF, maybe for effed up. Who knows? I mean, obviously, because the plant had to be shut down, so I don't know. Like, this is just like, can you believe that this is a conversation on a podcast, on a radio show, like that we actually have to actually do this, that we have to report on it ourselves, that our government is not doing all it can to guard the safety of our environment? I mean, I get it, they're racist pigs and they kill people and have ever since they've been here, and our country is based on war. We've never had more than a year or 2 off of war. We're a country of perpetual war. I get that. But to destroy our own environment, their environment where they're going to live in perpetuity, when they have enough money and enough science to honestly really be sober, take a sober look at it and say, okay, how can we reverse the reaction of the nuclear chain here? When we get the poison out, how do we turn it back into something quicker instead of just going, oh, well, it lasts 27,500 years. Nothing we can do here. No, I think we need science where they actually bend their brains and decide, hey, we're going to figure out a solution here. We're going to create outside the box and let technology help us figure that one out. I firmly believe we can do that. I guess I'm the eternal optimist here. So anyways, you are listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is July 11th, 2019. This podcast will be posted up on my Spreaker podcast. You can look for the Age of Fission on Spreaker.com. And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Nutzforart, NUTZFORART. And you can listen to me here on KEPW 97.3 FM LP every Thursday night at 11 o'clock. And I think throughout the day they're going to be playing some my little 2-minute clips that I'm trying to get these shows down in a nutshell and just put them on as news clips for people throughout the day. So we really appreciate you guys listening. I really love my audience and my fan base. I do get some really sweet emails. I really appreciate that. Please click like and share if you're hearing this online, and subscribe to my Spreaker channel and subscribe to me on my YouTube channel so that you can see all the other stuff that I can do, but I can't talk about it here because, you know, it's a nonprofit and we really respect that because everybody has different views. This is about promoting the community here. My show here on KEPW is mostly focused for our local community to really be aware of what's going on. We think in Oregon we're nuclear free. We are not nuclear free, but we are nuclear aware. We do have quite a few really good activists. I know the Women in Black, when they stand up, they really, and the Women for Peace, you know, the Peace Warriors that stand out in Eugene, Oregon at the library every noon on Saturday. I mean, we have some big peace activists and peace warriors in this city, so I appreciate being part of it, being part of you, and you being part of us. So please do tune in to kepw.org, 97.3 FM LP, and we will talk to you guys later. Put your courage feet on.